What is going on, guys? What is going on, guys? Hey, guys, happy Wednesday. Hope everyone's having an excellent day today. Sounds like Mr. O is almost back. So today, we're going to be talking about trace elements in the tank, and do you guys dose trace elements? I see Cruz in the chat. I know he's all about trace elements. I'll add the link if you'd like to join, good sir. So a few different things to talk about. I mean, so far, I can't hear you again if you're talking now.
Oh no,
okay,
I'm just making fun. Yep.
Okay, sounds good. He's like, your audio's not working as he's muted.
No, sorry. I'll be professional from now on. I'm sorry.
That's all good. So a couple of things. So kind of curious what people are doing. What's going on daily reefing? Nate, how are you? So yeah, sorry, my laptop was playing sound in the background. So traced elements. So I've been dosing Red Sea. Coffee, very good. So I've been dosing Red Sea Coral Colors as my trace elements for a while now. I've been looking at trying to do
Triton.
I haven't done Triton yet. Triton's where you come in. I've never tried Triton. Aaron's Aquarium, welcome. So Aqua Forest, I have not tried that yet. If anyone's tried that, be sure to come and share your experience on that one. So Red Sea I've used. I do plan on trying Miracle Mud in the near future, which is going to be potentially a good one. But first, kind of the few things for people out there about, do you need to use trace elements? I'd say it depends. In general, you probably don't have to, but your corals will benefit from it. On a small tank, if you use a decent quality salt, you do enough water changes, you're going to get enough minerals just from doing water changes. So in that aspect, I don't think it's a big thing, but if you have a larger tank or you don't do a lot of water changes, eventually all those minerals are going to be depleted from your corals and from your water, and that's when stuff could potentially start to cause issues down the road. Some of these things could be, like if windowsing trace elements, could give the squirrels better skeletons, you could get better coloration, better pulp extension, all those kind of things that reefers seem to love. So start off with, so I see we got Cruz on so far, and we got Seymour on. I'm going to drop the link one more time if anyone else would like to join. So if any of you guys have dove hardcore deep into trace elements, be sure to jump on the stream. So as for that, one of the other ones, I don't know if it's fully a trace, but amino acids is another one that, hey, how are you doing, Cruz?
Doing all right.
Yeah.
All right, Devin. How are you doing?
Wonderful, thank you. So actually, Cruz, you guys even have your own line of trace elements. So I know you guys are fairly big into it.
Yes, we are. I mean, there's always, kind of like what you're saying, the standard good quality salt that you utilize. That's typically a baseline.
Mm-hmm.
And, also kind of like what you're mentioning, utilization rates and bio load is also another big thing in utilization of the trace elements. So, or the speed at which you need to, resupplement your salt. There's a lot of discussions about that. There's people that, swear by water changes, and that's great. I support them too.
Mm-hmm.
We've been doing the Triton method, kind of like what Rico was saying before, is we did what they would call the Triton method before Triton.
Mm-hmm.
Basically dosing all the other elements in and doing minimal water changes as much as possible.
Yep.
We also utilize Miracle Mud. We have Reef Anabolics as a supplement line. We also have Reef Grow, which is also another product developed here in the States that also does the, I want to call the more manual element by element addition and supplementation,
Mm-hmm.
which is really, really good for some and not so convenient for others.
Yep.
So there's two different methods, one that's already pre-mixed, which is the Reef Anabolics.
Mm-hmm.
They're from Australia. They are relatively new to the hobby scene as a commercial product.
Mm-hmm.
But they've been doing a lot of the testing, personally, and then also comparing notes with myself and a couple of other known hobbyists over here in the United States. And just exchanging notes on, what we would like to see in a good product or in an up-and-coming product. Something that's a little bit different, a little bit more an attitude.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's yeah, we think that we've hit the upper end, you know, being able to actually push the limits a little bit on certain trace elements.
Mm-hmm.
I know that people worry about overdosing, blah, 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 so on and so forth. But yeah, it's we're at the upper end of what we would consider still conservative.
Mm-hmm. So just on a
but you'll actually see the benefits.
okay, so on yours, do you test for all the trace elements that you dose, or do you just kind of dose a consistent amount that you know they'll suck up, or how do you work it on your?
We always have a baseline ICP testing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, by of course Triton. I got to give them credit for that.
Yep.
And yeah, we utilize that as a baseline. We also start doing our dosing according to the manufacturer's recommendations,
Mm-hmm.
which I also helped establish some of that standard. And just basically, how do you say it, retest after a couple of months to actually see the overall utilization based on temperature, based on, you know, bioload, based on different types of corals. And that's where you get a lot more feedback is when you start varying different aspects of the tank. For instance, in hard corals, you know, the SPS, the LPS, you see a lot more utilization of certain elements than when you have an entire tank full of softies.
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. I mean, it's my opinion. For the most part, they're going to be sucking up the majority of the trace elements as they're building their skeletons.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now.
So yeah, it's basically a lot of trial and error. We've also run some mass, you know, biomass calculations, what we've anticipated, what we have assumed the total biomass is, and you know that's one of the hardest things because in a closed reef system, you get a lot of fluctuations, you know, based on bacterial colonization as well. So yeah, there's you know, bacteria populations go up and down depending on nutrient levels and also available oxygen. So that's also another touching point that we would also like to bring up when we're utilizing, you know, supplements, stuff like that. You have to remember one thing is that when you dose anything, add food or this and that, it also drives off the available oxygen in the water. And I know that a lot of people notice that their ORP drops every time that they add something in.
Epoxy, food, anything, you see a big drop in it.
Exactly. And, you know, it's a phenomenon. You know, I could go into the science, but it doesn't really explain why too much other than, yes, it drops. You know, any observable changes in your system, and ORP is the one that's affected every, you know, anytime you add liquids that are not oxygenated and also food particles where they actually, how do you say, degas the oxygen because it has a high affinity to escape the water. The one gas that has an affinity to dissolve into water is carbon dioxide. So that's one of the reasons why you also see a depression in the pH, you know, during the winter months and also during the summer months.
That's good to know. So when I used to use a calcium reactor, I mean, I didn't necessarily bother dosing trace elements then. But on that side, I mean, you're dissolving coral skeletons, so you're getting a lot of those minerals as you dissolve them and dose it back in. But now that I'm back to two-part, then it seems to be more important, at least.
Yes, because, I mean, with the calcium reactor, you're also getting your strontium. You're also getting some of your molybdenum. You're getting some of your, you know, other trace minerals going back into the system if you're actually controlling it correctly. The things that you're not getting out of calcium reactor are the other trace elements, you know, some of the potassiums that are trapped in the soft tissue.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
So the potassiums aren't there. So that's one of the reasons why when you're actually running a calcium reactor, you still need to run, you know, supplemental dosing of potassium or find a salt that has a higher potassium level.
Okay.
And that's one of the... Oh, go ahead.
Ozzy Dan was asking, can these trace element supplements raise nitrates?
It depends on what trace elements you're
Yeah, I guess every single one's going to be different, so it's hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, there's some that, depending on the chemical constitution of the actual solution, I mean, there are some nitrates, you know, potassium nitrates magnesium nitrates, you have your, um, oh gosh, your potassium iodides, stuff like that, that actually affect the, how do you say it, the overall dissolution of certain elements into the system.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to a point, and we're just on another YouTube channel as well, Oral and I were, and we were talking about dissolution rates of certain, elements, especially into water. That you reach a saturation point on some of them, based on the salts that are dissolved in the water and also the temperature.
Mm-hmm.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yep.
And then also to balance that out, there's also dissolved gases that affect the solubility of certain, trace elements and also the salts as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a lot of science that goes on behind it, but I'm trying not to geek out and get overly technical on this aspect of it. So yeah, everything does affect the solubility of salts and also bioavailability of the macro and micronutrients in the system.
Nice. So just throw this out there. I know a few people asked about why I don't have a calcium reactor when I'm doing two-part. That was 100% just because I needed space in my sump. It was too big to fit beside my sump, like on my shelf. So I was using one of the chambers in my sump, which is now a frag rack. So that's the main reason I went back to two-part for now. And I have like a huge bucket of calcium hydroxide and alkalinity, sodium carbonate or bicarbonate, whatever one it is. So that's the whole reason. I have so much, so I just figured might as well use it up.
Yeah, space. I think that's one of the reasons I never tried a calcium reactor, because just don't have the space for it. Apartment reefing, man, space is a premium, so not an option.
If I didn't have the frag section, I'd probably still have it in there. But it is easier to an extent, right? Like it's one of those things it takes you like a week or a few days, whatever, to set it up and tweak it. But once it's dialed in, you just basically set it and forget it. Just test every couple of weeks. And if it starts to sway a little bit, you can either do a little adjustment dose or just tweak it, to dose a little bit more to your tank and you're good to go again. So it was really low maintenance, which was nice.
I am anxious, just I'm anxious. Especially with Michael, with Aaron's aquariums. Once you get to the point where your tank is mature and you're at maximum like absorption rate, what like Triton absorption is going to be, because eventually I want to get a bigger tank than a 75.
Yeah.
And I would like to know like what, what is it going to cost me to run? I mean, I'm interested in running Triton forever, but I also said that about Zeovit too. So I just want to know what is the absorption going to be? Is it going to get to the point where I'm using like 30, 40 milliliters a day of the Triton stuff? Because then that'll be really expensive to run.
Mm-hmm. I have no idea. I haven't done Triton, so I can't say how it relates, but I'm dosing around 60 milliliters a day of calcium and alkalinity to my tank.
I was doing the BRS2 part, and I was doing 50 a day.
Okay.
And I'm doing about 10 of Triton a day now. Yeah, Triton is a lot more concentrated than the BRS2 part, two-part stuff.
So, okay. Perfect. So, ReefDudes, does anyone know about Reef Anabolics? Mr. Cruz sure does. Cruz, tell us about Reef Anabolics. I know that's the one brand you were promoting, and that's the one you're bringing from Australia, I believe. So,
yes, Reef Anabolics is basically a proprietary blend of a lot of the trace elements that they packaged up into 4 bottles. Basically, the reason for the 4 bottles and not 1 bottle is because some of the constituents would actually react with the other and actually fall out and precipitate out. So that's one of the reasons why we split it out. And not only that, but the Reef Anabolics, one of the biggest things and one of the benefits of it is that you could actually add it to the BRS2 part and actually make it a more complete additive. We're also testing it on a couple of other 2-part additives. Ionic has a lot of stuff in it already, so we're trying to stay away from that one. Because there's just so many different balances and so many different elements that would react with each other.
When you say added to, do you mean like you can actually mix it with, or just use it in conjunction with?
Mix it with. You put it into your dosing container, that's already pre-mixed two-part with the BRS or the Randy Holmes Farley method, and then you add this trace element, a given amount of volume of this trace element directly to that, mix it up, and actually start the dosing. That way, you're not having to do multiple dosers.
You know what?
That's nice.
That's interesting, because the entire reason why I kind of went down this hole of like trying these different things was because, you know, I just wanted a trace element solution that was just balanced and easy to use. And this is, while I you know, I'm on Triton right now, but that's interesting that, you know, you already have BRS 2-part and you can mix this in and essentially just, you know, dose, like you have a gallon of BRS 2-part mixed up, you put in whatever, you know, equates to a gallon, and then when you're dosing, you can be sure you're dosing like in balanced amount. Yeah, because that's the thing, you know, that's the thing that I guess makes like the Red Sea and some of the other ones kind of more appealing, because you know that if you're dosing 2 of this, dose 2 of this, and it's balanced to, you know, match up with, you know.
Yeah, and the benefit of this, and one of the reasons why I utilize the word tenacious, is it's a different methodology, utilizing and piggybacking on somebody else's formulation.
There's a question, I know you can mix it with your 2-part. Can you mix it with calc as well?
Ooh, that is a good question. We'd recommend not, because once again, it will react.
Okay. So same thing where you don't want to mix calcium and alkalinity together, like they'll react with each other. So
exactly, it'll start just precipitating out, and you're going to have snow in the middle of October in your system.
Nice.
You know, the other day I actually just mixed some stuff together that I shouldn't. I've never seen like precipitation firsthand before. So, you know, like I think yesterday and early this morning, I was just, you know, I found some old BRS 2-part and I decided to just let me see what precipitation looks like. And yep, you end up getting like a nice slurry, like very heavy. Yep.
Globe, right?
Yep.
Like a snow
Yep.
globe.
That's basically what it is. Yep.
Yep.
Yep. That was funny. That was for my edification, but that was fun. That was kind of fun.
So, yeah, we were trying to take. Well, I know that Reef Anabolics was trying to take what was a standard 2-part, you know, very, very bare minimum, a more complete dosing system, as opposed to dosing individual bottles into, you know, into the tank, you know, 1 syringe at a time or 1 dropper at a time, and, you know, measure it once, you set it and forget it. And I think that that's the easiest way to actually establish a good baseline.
Yep.
The Reef Anabolics to what dosing you've already done, or what you're actually doing.
So
because based on the calcium, go ahead.
No, with the Reef Anabolics, there's 4 of them, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So they can all be mixed together, or is there certain 2 of them that you had combined in one tank, or sorry, on like, you know, with your calcium or with your alkalinity? Like, how would you, if you did want to, you know, use your single 2 heads to control it all?
Yeah, one's for the calcium, one's added to the alkalinity, and one's added to the magnesium.
Okay.
So it's a 2-part / 3-part.
Okay.
And then the last one is what we call Reef Boost, and that one actually just that's the manually added one. Okay. So that there is one that you actually manually add to the system.
Okay, so you'd mix 1 with calcium, 1 with elk, 1 with magnesium. So you need 3 heads, and then 1 part you dose manually.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. There, hopefully that clears that one up.
I mean, it kind of simplifies dosing and the dosing regimen for the supplementation. And we think that that's one of the innovative portions of the Reef Anabolics line, and it makes it a little bit more accessible. And you know, to the I want to call it the budget reefers who are actually wanting to go ahead and level and actually have a more complete 3-part, 2-part type of solution.
Yep. Now one of the other things I was looking at was Miracle Mud, because in a sense, it's your mud sits in the bottom of your sump, and it contains a lot of these trace elements and nutrients, and your corals and your tank can suck it out as it needs it. So would one want to do Miracle Mud or this, or would you want to be doing multiple ones?
We could actually combine it, and what we could do is we could actually, what we were talking about, and I was discussing this with the Reef Anabolic guys,
Mm-hmm.
and also the ecosystem aquarium guys with Miracle Mud, is that you would just adjust your dosing.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of putting the full dose in the Miracle Mud, you'd actually make a half dose or a quarter dose
Okay.
to your calcium or alkalinity. Does
Yep.
that kind of make sense? You
Yep.
kind of reduce your additives.
Okay. Now, so a few other people are asking about Aquaforest and Triton, how those ones compare. I haven't used either of those ones, so I can't 100% comment on it. Someone's giving me sad faces about the TV in the background. Whoever that one is.
I can tell you that those two other products are pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
They have their strengths, just like any other product. There's strengths and there's also drawbacks.
Yep.
You take a look at anything and you can see the pros and cons.
Mm-hmm.
And the two is we're trying to limit the cons to increase the utilization. But once again, with the other systems, and I know that Oral's been a very, very avid Triton fan,
Mm-hmm.
and he's seen great results with it. I know a lot of other people that have seen great results with Triton and also Aquaforce as well. So there's validity to their formulations.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, it's the difference between driving a manual and driving a stick, and driving an automatic.
Yeah.
It's with the Reef Anabolics, I know that you add it directly to your three-part,
Mm-hmm.
2-part, 3-part, and you forget about it.
Yeah.
Does that kind of make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to worry about measuring it out daily. The Reef Boost you use once a week.
So
Once every couple of days, depending on utilization.
now I know this 100% with the Reef Anabolics. I'm getting a question about it in the chat from Christopher. Depends on how much you use. But so how long on, say, an average 100-gallon mixed reef would you expect the Reef Anabolics to last?
Okay, well, in a normal mixed tank, I would say it would last you roughly around 5.5 to 6 months, depending on population density and coral density in your system, and also how many fish you have.
Okay.
That's also a big part, but roughly about 5 to 6 months for a 100-gallon tank.
So how are you relating the fish bioload to how many nutrients? Like, will more fish mean that, the fish poop and all that stuff's adding more nutrients, so you don't need to dose as much? Or would it mean they would somehow consume something you have to dose less?
Well, they would consume... that's a very, very good question.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't measured that. I haven't measured that particularly.
Okay.
And I know that, it's kind of like vitamins.
Mm-hmm.
You take it once a month, you're doing okay.
Yeah.
It's better than nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You take it twice a month, you're doing better. You take one a day, you're doing the best.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? So any little incremental change or positive that you're adding back to the system will actually ultimately nudge you in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
There is no absolutes in reefing. A lot of people say that there is, and I've challenged that mentality as well. Halides versus LEDs. Well, why not both?
Yeah.
Or LEDs versus T5s. Why not both?
Mm-hmm.
It goes back to the same argument. Is there only one way to reef? Absolutely not.
No.
So when it comes down to mixing different products and stuff that one product doesn't have but another does, how do you blend and how do you gain that knowledge in understanding how to blend different technologies, different additives, different solutions,
Mm-hmm.
and actually make it work for your system.
Yep.
And I think that that's still the art part of the reefing hobby, is understanding how your corals react, how your fish react,
Mm-hmm.
how they look when they're healthy versus when they're not doing so well. It's like, oh gosh, yeah, it's still an art. You have to develop that eye, understand what you're trying to look for, and then make observations. Is the best that I could say. Is the experience level has to be there. You have to know what you're looking for and what you're looking at.
No, I do 100%
And I
agree
think
with that. I mean, I've tried kelp, I've tried two-part, I've tried calcium reactors, like, I've tried all these different things. And at the end of the day, they're all doing similar things to your tank. So there is 100 different ways to accomplish the same thing.
yeah,
Yep.
and I've seen a lot of successful people regimens and swear
Mm-hmm.
by them. But once again, I try to tell people, don't get stuck on a name brand. Like for instance, the Salifert test
Mm-hmm.
kits. We utilize Salifert for some. We utilize API for others that we don't need super accurate.
Yep.
We utilize ICP testing for others that we can't test with titration. So I mean, there's a different application for different brands and different products, and some are better than others. Certain things. So
Mhm.
don't get hung up on a name brand saying, "Oh, I'm a Salifert." I'm a Salifert guy for life. You know what I'm saying? Or
Yeah.
I love Hannah Checker, and Hannah Checker is the only way to go. Well,
For alkalinity, I
Hannah
agree.
Checker
For the
doesn't have
rest,
exactly
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
Hannah Checkers don't have a potassium test.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
For the color
I
industry.
I agree with Cruz. With yeah, because I think I'm just a gearhead at heart, and it definitely translates to my tank. I always say when I was younger, computers were my outlet. Then it got to speaker systems and sound, and now that I'm into reefing, like reefing is my outlet for my gearheadedness. But pretty much every carbon dosing / trace element solution that I've used in the past, I've had success with. I always swap for different reasons. I've used the Red Sea stuff where I've used the BRS 2-part and the Red Sea, the ABCD and had okay with it. I used Zeovit, which gave me great colors, but
I
it was
utilize
just
Bio,
yeah,
Ionic.
it,
Ionic's
it
another good one.
it
mhm.
was just too involved. It didn't fit my lifestyle with dosing this, dosing that, the little chemicals. I'm using Triton now. But yeah, I've had success. Zeovit was also very expensive.
Mhm.
Like very expensive. Like I think I've done the math, and between the reactor and the first year costs of Zeovit were like I think 12 or $1,300.
Mhm.
Yep, thousands of
Yeah.
dollars for us too. And I
Yeah.
think that it has to come down to the blue bottles.
Oh, oh, and I'm being conservative because I didn't add up everything, and I'm really being and the reactor I bought, like I bought the Skims reactor, which was crap. It was a cheap reactor that didn't pump well. Like it was really a bad reactor. So imagine if I had gone for So between their trace element stuff, which was like $50 a bottle, then when I wanted the tablet stuff because then you just put it in the sump and replace it every 3 months. It was expensive. Like Zeovit, I think was about $1,500. And then when I was I was starting a new venture. I was doing a couple different things, and I needed to simplify. And then got sold on Triton and say, hey, you dose these 4 bottles and you can eliminate water changes. Like that was intriguing because even with Zeovit, the thing about Zeovit, it works. Like I don't think I've ever had as beautiful colors as I did with Zeovit, but it's just that it's an involved process, and it's a process. Like you do not want to deviate from the steps.
Regimen.
It's
Mhm.
regiment. That's a perfect word. It's a regimen. And you do not want to deviate from the regiment. Like really, like, so when they say do 10% water change, yeah,
You have to have the discipline.
I
Mhm.
went away for, I think, 7 or 8 days. And then my wife, in one week, like, like a few things went wrong, like misdosed something, listen, I can't blame her. You went on the windowsill and there's a bunch of blue bottles. So when I say dosed Zeo Food 7, like she probably dosed Zeo Start 7 instead of Zeo Food. So, everything says Zeo. So it's an understandable mistake. And then when I came back after just 8 days, like the tank looked like shit. Like sorry to curse, and that's after a week of just misdosing things. So yeah, with Zeovit, like it's a strict regimen, and like I said, the almost a year I was on Zeovit, beautiful tank
Mhm.
was beautiful colors, and I didn't even go like true Zeovit where I know there's a method of Zeovit where you start to like even control the zooxanthellae on the corals to get like that pastel coloration look. I didn't even get that far yet. I didn't want to go down that road. But yeah, so I've had success with all the trailers, with the Red Sea, Zeovit, and with Triton. I guess it just depends on
what you're
um,
trying to accomplish.
yeah, what you're trying to accomplish, lifestyle. Maybe something's not working for you in your tank, and you want to try something else. Because I've had a friend where we bought the exact tank, had the same equipment, and for the most part, we're trying to follow the same regimen, and our tanks were like completely different. Like what worked for him didn't work for me. To control nutrients, he just needed to dose like almost twice as much vodka as I did, and we were feeding the same foods, and so your tank, you know, yeah. I'm just 100% agreeing with what you said. Like, it's just
It's an
personal
art.
preference, and it's an art. There's
Hmm.
no set way that if you do this, I can follow Reef Dudes exactly by the same light, same tank,
Hmm.
and same corals, and I will have a completely different experience, in the hobby than he does with the
Hmm.
same tank.
And that's where the fundamentals really come in, though. And I keep on bringing back fundamentals. Yeah, coral utilization, bioload, and understanding how much you're feeding, how much you're exporting, running your skimmer wetter versus
Hmm.
drier, and all these other little variables that a lot of us overlook. Maybe he was actually skimming wetter than you, Oral, your buddy.
Or we
And
could
maybe
have,
he saw, yeah,
yeah, we could have different flow patterns, different lighting intensity, durations, all that
yep,
stuff.
or the
Like,
lighting.
I mean,
Exactly. The lighting could be higher,
hmm
lower, you know, little things like that
it all adds
that
up.
actually affect the tank. It does.
Yeah, so no two tanks are ever the same. Every situation is different. So I mean that's awesome point. Like you can't just straight up copy somebody else exactly because you're gonna have to tweak it to work in your specific situation.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then when you
Understanding the. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
no, exactly what you were going to say. I was going to say that I think once you understand the fundamental, like I'm going to mimic exactly what you're probably going to say is, you understand the fundamentals. Like a lot of the stuff we're doing is maybe name brand. Like it was interesting when Rico did his ICP test. Turns out his levels were spot on, but he's not dosing the Triton test. But you know what Rico's doing? Um,
Miracle
Feeding
Mud.
all these different type of foods that's
Mm-hmm.
probably breaking down into different carbohydrates or whatever that while
Building
you
blocks.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
The
that
building blocks.
I tend to like Reef Frenzy. So I use Reef Frenzy all the time in the same type of pellets because my fish like it. But when Rico's feeding his tank, like I was dumbfounded. Like the guy is feeding like 6 or 7, 8 different foods. And he's like, yeah, I just want to diversify, like
Mm-hmm.
at some point someone's gonna get something they like
Yep.
from all these foods I'm feeding. So, yeah, so his Triton levels, he doesn't do water changes. He has a refugium like what Triton recommends, but his levels for Triton when he did the IP, it was well within what Triton recommended. So it's almost like he was doing the same thing, but had like a completely different journey to
Yeah,
get to the same place.
exactly. And once again, there's more than one way to reef
Yep. Many.
than one way to reef. So, and I applaud those people who actually find, innovative ways on maintaining levels. There's some people that swear by feeding spinach. It adds iron back into the system, so on and so forth.
I hear
Kale,
actually
so you actually, yeah, go ahead.
I've heard vitamin C a lot recently.
Yes,
Do a lot have you ever tried that? I've never tried that one, but
we dose a little St. Joseph tablet into our system every now and then.
nice.
That's and some of the other minerals too that we add in for kicks is the 1 a day vitamins that we also take as humans.
Pop one in your mouth, throw one in the tank.
Yeah, one a day.
Nice. That's
So
awesome.
just based on water volume and stuff like that, we've calculated, we've pulverized some vitamins for that. We've also utilized Miracle Mud.
Hmm.
We religiously utilize and change it out when we need to, based on the the permanent marker that we have listed on our Tupperware trays
Mm-hmm.
that we actually utilize, and we still utilize Tupperware trays by the way. I know that there's
Why
some
not?
people that wanted to utilize acrylic tubs and acrylic trays, and that's great, but I'm also frugal when it comes down to our filtration system,
Mm-hmm.
giving it what it needs without being too fancy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, at the end of the day, it's
So when
a container holding mud, so it doesn't don't have to feel too crazy. Although I'm not gonna lie, I was looking at acrylic trays at the dollar store the other day.
yes, you were.
I'm one of
Yes,
those.
you
I was like, this one looks pretty. Oh.
Yeah. Yep. You got your blue ones. You got your pink ones. You got your teal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
color coded trays. Oh, this one was done at this date. This one was done 6 months later. Could
Yep.
be.
Exactly. And I mean, whatever works. Whatever works.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like what Earl was hitting. Whatever your goals are for the tank, be it
Mm-hmm.
softies, it's different than somebody who wants SPS.
Yep.
And you have to understand the fundamentals of what is required for each of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of the hardest ones, and you could attest to this one, Devin, is having a mixed reef tank. It's one of the hardest ones to do because you have to balance everything.
Mm-hmm.
Certain levels, like for instance, Duncans don't like high potassium.
Yeah.
But yet I've seen people overdose the potassium on the Red Sea colors.
Been there?
And understanding that, they did not even know that they were overdosing it.
Mm-hmm.
The Duncans pull in and then they start receding.
Yep. Nope.
Little things like that.
I have actually had that
about.
exact same thing happen when my Duncans were kind of receding for a bit, and I was dosing 2 mils a day of the Red Sea coral colors and learned I was way overdosing because I was lazy and didn't test for about a month or more. And I finally tested and realized I was like, higher than even the chart read. So I was like, oh, great. So I've cut that way back, and now I dose 1 mil every second day, opposed to I was doing 2 mil a day. So same thing. Now my Duncans are huge and flourishing. So that's a great example.
Yeah, you have to know. Yeah, you have to know what you're looking for and
Mm-hmm.
how to read your tank.
Yeah.
And once again, it's an art, and it's only gained by experience, trial and error. Or living vicariously through somebody else who's made the same mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And actually learning from that so that you avoid it in the future.
Yeah. So, just out of curiosity, did you dose any other random vitamins or minerals to your tanks outside of the norm?
Occasionally, especially when it comes down to iodine,
Mm-hmm.
iodine levels. We dose some of the what is that called? Google solution every once in a while for the iodine pump. We also have in the Reef Anabolics there is an iodine supplement,
Mm-hmm.
saying that sometimes the utilization of iodine is higher at certain temperatures
Oh, really?
than at other temperatures. Yes.
Well, actually, that does
and
make
also potassium.
that. Well, the levels are higher, or your consumption's higher. Consumption higher makes sense. I don't know about
The
levels.
consumption.
Okay, because
Yeah, the consumption. I'm saying the consumption level, meaning I have to dose more.
well, that does make sense because the temperature in a way is related to your coral's metabolism. So higher temperatures is going to speed up the metabolism, kind of like your fish and your corals,
Yes.
which means they'll likely grow faster if you in higher temperatures to an extent before it starts going downhill. But so I mean, if they're growing faster, they're going to consume more. So in a way that affects it. But at the same time, if it gets too hot, I mean, there's a little more risk when it's higher temperatures too. That's a trade-off.
And the funny thing is that when they actually did a saltwater test over there
Mm-hmm.
in the Red Sea, they also noticed a higher availability of iodine
Mm-hmm.
in the Red Sea. In not the Red Sea supplement. I'm talking about the Red Sea.
The real
ocean,
sea. Yeah.
The actual water, body of water.
Mm-hmm.
Is that there's certain elements that are higher than in anywhere else in the world because it is, I want to say, landlocked on three sides.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying? So you do have different runoff. You have, runoff from the land. You have runoff that's different than over there in the Great Barrier Reef. You have different runoff over there in Alaska, and also the reef that they found over there in South America as well. There's different runoff, different silt, different sediments.
Mm-hmm.
So, but depending on which coral, and this is one of the reasons why I'm saying it, is the mixed reef you're putting corals in from different locations of the world because they're colorful and they're different colors for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So the light intensities are different, the salinities are slightly different, and also the ionic balance is a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, even though they can adapt, you know, there's some that need more of one thing to flourish, while the other ones need less. So finding that balance in between is always, you know, it's always guesswork. And for lack of better terms, it's an estimate.
Yeah.
The best average you can get. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Devin, does that kind of make sense?
No, exactly. I mean, well, same thing. If you want something that likes a lower amount of this, you want something that likes a higher amount. I mean, you kind of average in the middle and hope that everyone adapts and is happy to an extent.
Exactly. And it's true for the for macroalgae as well, for the refugium. You know, the macroalgae utilize different things depending on color, form, shape, depth at which they're collected.
Yep.
And you know, Chaetomorpha is a surface type floating mat style algae, which is a simple algae, versus a Caulerpa, which is more structured and more highly complex, where it has rooting anchors. You know, it has true stem and leaf patterns, kind of thing. So there's a big difference in how do you say it? Oh gosh, what am I trying to say? There's different requirements for each different type of coral, you know, organism, plant, macroalgae, different requirements for each. So depending on how you stock your tank, you can make it either very, very easy, or you can make it very difficult, very fast, without knowing.
No, that's true. And I mean, it's a balancing act, right? Especially us mixed reef tank lovers that are trying to get every type of coral from everywhere. You just, you know, I personally pick ones that look nice and they're colorful. It's half my decision making. I'm like, yeah, I'll make it work. I'll find a way to make this happy.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's, you know, once again, you know, Oral nailed it on the head. He said it was a balancing act. I couldn't put it any better.
Yep.
You know, and it also comes down to the point of out competition. In the Miracle Mud type of system with a display tank, so on and so forth, we're noticing that macroalgae actually grow faster in the Miracle Mud substrate, therefore outcompeting a lot of the simpler algae or the single cell algae that are non-diversified, you know, like the green hair algae and the turf algae and stuff like that.
So on that note, one thing that kind of piqued my interest, I think I brought it up a week or two ago, but with the Pax Bellum reactors, there's a supplement that you're supposed to dose with it, and that's kind of something that keeps the algae growing. I see most people with Chaeto reactors or Chaeto in their sump, it grows great for a few weeks, a few months, and then the growth starts to stunt. And that's because you've used up whatever that nitrogen or whatever it is in the water that it needs to help grow. So Miracle Mud's probably, in a sense, that little battery of that as well to keep it growing and keep it thriving.
Yes, sir. And I know that we grow Chaeto primarily as well in a refugium type of setup, tubs and stuff like that. Whereas Oral grows it in the Pax Bellum reactor, the Chaeto reactor. And he's, you know, doing additives manually right now to keep that growth going, which is the molybdenum, the MD, the potassium, and also the iron.
I gotta learn to pronounce that word. Molybdenum, dude.
You did it.
Sounded rightish.
Yeah, molybdenum. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I have to dose potassium, molybdenum, and there's another one. Oh man, I can't. Iodine. Those whenever I do a Triton test, those elements are always way way lower than what Triton recommends. So I buy those supplements, you know, separately, and like I buy them from Triton and dose them. So now I'm actually considering, you know, sort of like putting those on dosers, because they in my tank they get depleted at such high levels. Maybe it's because of the Chaeto reactor, you know, it's such an intense growth area. Maybe it I don't know what it is in my tank, so I'm actually gonna consider like putting molybdenum and especially well, not molybdenum, but potassium and iodine. I'm gonna consider doing those on a doser because the
Or
tank
put it in
can.
your auto top off.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm trying to simplify your life, buddy.
Wait, whoa. So in RODI water, nothing's gonna happen to like potassium or in RODI water. That's interesting. I never thought of that.
So long as you don't have bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
No, I keep my auto top off pretty, and I just put a new container also that I've never run calc in, so it's totally clean.
There you go. It saves yourself some time.
That's interesting. You know what? I'm gonna try that with the potassium because I think there's more wiggle room with it. But that's interesting. I'm gonna try that with the potassium. Good idea, Cruz. That's my next experiment.
Yeah.
I love you, Oral. I'm trying to reduce your workload.
I'm gonna calculate it. I'm gonna calculate the water level. So here's what I'm gonna do when I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna let the ATO run low.
Mm-hmm.
And the next time I'm doing it, when I'm filling it, I'm going to calculate the fill level, try to calculate how much my Triton test is, how much my tank is depleted in between Triton tests, and then add it to the water and try to, I'll undershoot instead of overshooting. And that'll be interesting. Interesting. All right.
You can always add more, so.
Yeah, I never thought of that.
Keep track of your temperature, too.
Oh, see, that's the one thing I actually, well, now it's summer, so it doesn't matter, but I have a hard time, like.
It's not summer.
Yeah, it's fall.
It's fall.
No, that's what I said. It's not summer anymore,
Okay.
so it's not.
All right.
Okay.
No. Yeah.
Sorry.
But in the summer, my apartment is warm, on the warm side.
Is it consistent, though? That's the big thing, right?
Well, in the winter, like, it's pretty consistent. It's just that when it gets warm in the summer, I don't have big swings in temperature. I don't. Okay. It's just that in the summer, my tank is kept at about 80, 81 because my chiller basically runs all the time. So I actually struggle with temp. Yeah, my tank, if my chiller doesn't work, my tank gets up to 85, 86 on a normal day.
So if you have a chiller, though, it's got to be fairly consistent then if it needs to be.
I'm actually going to get a bigger chiller. I think I have a 1/10th. I'm actually next summer, I'm actually going to go with maybe a 1/5 horsepower, a bigger chiller. Definitely getting a bigger chiller.
Nice. Not going to lie. I'm happy I don't have to use a chiller. Sounds like a pain.
But I also don't have to use a heater. I also don't have to use a heater in the winter. So very rarely, let me not say never, but I rarely have to use a heater in the winter. So that's also, I guess it's a good balance.
It's a plus, because I mean, my heater is probably my biggest electricity draw in my tank. So
I'm going to try and use fans though. I'm going to try and use fans. The fact now that I'm getting a T5 fixture that's going to hang from the wall, I don't want to deviate too much because I think the conversation, but I think going into next summer, I'm going to try a few things. I think the Red Sea cabinets are not vented properly. There's one little hole at the back. So I think Red Sea could have done a better job in terms of venting the cabinet. So I think what I'm going to do in the summer is I'm probably going to change the cabinet a little bit, where maybe change the doors a little bit, do something where maybe I set it so the door is removable. And so I vent the cat because my sump doors are always open because I just want to look at the sump all the time. So I might as well make it so it's easily removable, and try to put some fans there to cool it and see how that works versus doing the chiller. So I'm gonna try some stuff.
I have another idea for you if you would like to try it. We've done it a couple of times over here at our system. I don't want to mention it right now, but we'll bring it up next summer.
All right. Hey, I'm willing to.
Save you money.
Hey, I'm willing to try. Rather than clipping fans, and I'm willing to. I paid so much money for a nice, beautiful rimless tank. I would hate to have to clip a fan like a $15, $20 Walmart fan on the top of my tank.
Why not do it in your sump if you're?
Well, that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm going to do when I'm taking the door off. because literally the Red Sea tank has maybe a 8 inch by 5 inch opening at the back, and that's all that's vented at the back in the sump area. Like it's really small. It's
Mhm.
really small. Like yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like next year, I'm gonna probably try to do something where I can easily take the door off and leave the sump open because I just like looking at the sump anyway.
Mhm. Yeah, I only I have one the end panel actually in the back. I only have two sides that I normally leave on my sump as well. But
It's always open, but then I'm worried that my kids are gonna like you know walk by and just somehow rip it off and break it or something's gonna happen. So if I have something that's like easily removable, I can remove it, put it away, and just have access to my sump and just stare at it all day.
mhm. Well, if you're
I think
working
we
from
all
home
do.
anyways, then
Yeah.
you can
No,
enjoy the view.
I'm not exaggerating. Like I literally always have my sump doors open and I stare at the sump.
Mhm.
Um I don't know. It's something mesmerizing about the sump just looking at it and just looking at the macroalgae and looking at the Chato reactor at night. Yeah,
Yeah,
when
the water.
in about 2 hours, in about an hour and a half, everyone's gonna go to bed, and I'm gonna be the only one up. And what am I gonna do? Like my little sectional is close to the tank.
Mhm.
I'm gonna open the doors. I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna look at the sump.
So you don't even need a display. You just
There's a
need one giant sump.
one giant sump.
Yeah.
Just put
I
a
mean,
bunch of
there's a lot of
macroalgae in your display and.
there's a lot of organisms that live in the sump. That's why
Mhm.
also, you have your amphipods there, you have your copepods, you have all these other little intricate things. I mean, if you love bugs when you were a kid, watching the amphipods move and eat and everything else, and chase each other,
Mhm.
it's fun to watch.
It is.
Mhm.
Very very fun to watch.
I like.
I got stung by like a crazy, I think it's a fireworm or something.
Oof.
Um,
Mm.
I'm not gonna take him out. He's in my refugium is used for like pods, and those animals. I don't think there's a low chance that they'll get from the sump to the display tank, but it's nice to look at night and watch them walking around. And
It's free
so
fish
yeah,
food.
you're right.
Free fish food if they make the way up. So question. With Chaeto and other macroalgae, do you feel they add macronutrients to the tank?
They add stability. I know
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yep. Like I know for
They add
pH and other
stability and
things.
biodiversity.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yep.
They complete a lot of the cycles that we typically don't have. We ran a couple of our systems. Some of our clients, they didn't want what they would call dirty stuff in their tank. So we're running everything on a reactor, from bioreactors to sulfur reactors and this and that. They're basically gearheads, kind of like what Oral was actually alluding to is some people just want stuff. They want reactors instead of natural. So it's basically a huge, I want to call it a resuscitation type of device, artificial,
Life support.
artificial,
The hospital, all those air breathers and everything else keeping you going.
yes, yes, yes. So, I mean, some people like that, and they think that that's what reefing is about. And then there's others that are more naturalistic, like Julian Sprung,
Mm-hmm.
myself, also Ling Sai, and also the people that have had their tanks for, I want to say, decades. We tend to want to do the minimal amount of work for the biggest amount of return.
Makes sense. That's human nature for you.
Absolutely. I mean, I am a lazy reaper, so I'd rather set it up right the first
Mhm.
time.
I
Does that kind of make sense?
yeah, I call myself a lazy reefer too, but I spend the endless hours automating and doing things so I don't have to. But on that same kind of note, same thing. I went through the way too much equipment on my tank, and now I'm trying to I still like to automate everything, but still simplify the stuff that's not really needed, but just throw it on for fun.
Exactly. And that's the whole part of the hobby is to have fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, experimentation, I'm all for it. I love it. I do it myself.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to see what would happen if we
Mhm.
Little things like that a lot of people kind of say, well, it's not made for the reef, blah blah blah. I'm like, well, it's made for the human body, so it should be safe.
Yeah, that's
It's
fair.
pharmaceutical grade. It's bioavailable. It should be bioavailable to us. Some
So
people say that vitamins are worthless.
So on that note, Al was just asking, do corals uptake minerals, vitamins, and amino acids similar to humans on a cellular level?
They don't see minerals is a very very how do you say it, very complex type of science.
Mhm.
The corals have polyps to ingest. That's one of the reasons why they develop polyps, a mouth, and stuff like that to actually take in some silt,
Mhm.
and also to collect some of the droppings from fish, because there's also minerals in the fish food. Fish food. So that's how they eat, and that's how they also import internally these minerals. They
Mhm.
don't absorb it through their skin.
Yep.
The ones that are actually dissolved into the water, yes, they absorb through their membrane.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, every once in a while we would take a spoonful of miracle mud, and just kind of like dump it in and create a small little cloud
Mhm.
of
Hmm.
dust, basically. And what ended up happening is we're noticing, just by observation from our experience, all the polyps came out, and they loved it. And we
Really?
could actually
Nice.
see them moving the particulates into the mouth,
Huh, that's really
which is
cool.
very, very strange. Never saw that until we actually started doing a lot of macro shots and macro videos and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And we noticed that, hey, they actually do eat sand and, minerals, kind of like the way that, over there in Arizona, how they have the red mud and stuff like that. And some pregnant women eat the mud.
Mhm.
Very, very similar to that. The body tells you what you're missing, and you develop a taste for certain things because it's supposed to contain a certain element or a certain mineral that your body's otherwise lacking.
Yeah. What your body's craving.
Exactly. Like sugar. Sugar is one of those things that we typically should not have, but it's a carbon dosing. We're carbon
Yeah.
dosing our body, and the bacteria love it
Mhm.
inside our bodies. So that's one of the reasons why it's so addicting as well. Not only the taste, but also how it makes us feel.
Yep. Getting that extra carbon.
Yep, absolutely. Chocolate.
Terrible but good. But yeah, it is kind of funny. So have you said you dosed vitamin E and C to your system, right? Or D?
Yep,
You had a
vitamin
couple
E,
of them.
omega-3 oils. Yep.
So have you noticed a difference from doing it? Or are you doing it as more of a blanket, here's tons of good minerals. Hopefully some of them are useful.
Well, some of the vitamins are more useful. They're at different concentrations. We're always testing different things.
Hmm.
Different delivery mechanisms, different applications. Celcon is high in omega-3 fatty acids and stuff like that. Also has a high vitamin E content.
Hmm.
So yeah, but Celcon is a very, very good product. We also utilize that too. But yeah, we're for lack of better terms, we're wanting to see how much our systems can take without causing harm. Do you know what I'm saying? The
How
scientific methodology.
how much you can dose without overdosing in a way, like for its.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Where it becomes detrimental.
Hmm.
So we do have a couple of experimental tanks that we have that aren't tied to the main system. So yeah, we have those systems set aside, and we do a little bit of testing here and there.
Hmm.
But for the most part, we do have a regimen that we like to stick with, that we're very, very comfortable with.
Yep.
And I'm not encouraging people to just run out there and change the way that they're doing things. If it's working for you, it's great.
Hmm.
I'm all for it. I want you to enjoy the hobby. And that's the ultimate thing. As a hobbyist, I want other hobbyists to enjoy what they're doing and
On
not be so stressed out.
another random side note on that, when I was overdosing the Red Sea stuff, I noticed a lot of red coloration was taking over my tank. Like some of the stuff that was normally oranges and yellows was turning more red.
Mhm.
from whatever mineral that was. I don't know if it was the potassium or which one the coral colors are. But yeah, so
The iodine.
iodine. Okay.
Potassium iodide.
Yeah. So a few of those things is kind of interesting. So I mean, to an extent, once you figure out what does what, you can almost play with your tank and force certain colorations or change it based on which minerals you're putting into the tank.
Correct.
So, which could be good or bad. I mean, obviously in a mixed reef, some corals are going to look awesome and others might not look as cool. So, it's definitely a trade-off there.
So I mean, there's and once again, you brought up a very, very good point, Devin. Is that some corals need more and some corals need others. And what we want to do is we want to establish the baseline before we start tweaking.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You want to find the most stable part in chemistry for the water, the balance, the bioload, the lighting. You want to find that balance first.
Mm-hmm.
And once you find that balance, then, you want to be able to start doing the experimentation, but still understanding how to back out from the experimentation.
Yep.
Because there's, and that's one of the things that, I noticed that a lot of people and a lot of the hobbyists, do is they're testing and they're tweaking and doing everything else, but they don't know how to back out of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying, other than a big water change, which throws everything back off again. And then they're wondering why their corals are receding, why they have RTN, why they have SN, why certain bacteria starts infecting their system, so on and so forth. And it's like, well, other than doing a huge water change, did you try this to back out?
Mm-hmm.
Or did you try to let it naturally come down?
Yep.
Like the potassium. You naturally let it come down and you try to leave it alone.
No, I'm with you. I did want to quickly throw this out there. I've seen it a bunch of times, so I just want to throw this as a good general reminder for everybody too. So a lot of times if someone sees something off in their tank, they'll do a big water change. It's kind of like the cure-all. But that can also be causing issues in your tank. I mean, in general, water change itself isn't bad. But I find a lot of people using these reef salts have, their alkalinity of like 11, 13, like really high alkalinities. If you run your tank at, say, 8, and all of a sudden you're getting a big elk spike in your tank, and that can cause issues, which, you think you're doing all good and you cause an issue from your water change. So just something to be aware of if you don't run your alkalinity constantly super high. A huge water change can do that, and it can actually shock corals or annoy them more. So as Cruz was kind of saying about let it naturally come down, sometimes that's a lot better way to deal with certain issues. Or do multiple small water changes rather than just hitting your tank with one big one.
Yeah, but also if you change things, like if you start dosing something or you're having a problem, you want to find out what it is, just do one thing at a time.
Mm-hmm.
If you jump into 3 or 4 at a time or stop doing 3 or 4, you don't know what caused the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen.
100%. I'm with you on that one. And yeah, in my earlier days of reefing, I was terrible for that. Something happens, you're like, oh, was it this or this or this? You're like, it's hard to ever pinpoint it. So
they're tweaking their lights because of something happened. They're tweaking this, there's that. Their temperature they're changing, and I'm like, but temperature had nothing to do with that.
Yep.
And here they are all adjusting everything, and I'm like, slow down. Well, maybe it's my wave maker.
They'll tweak their lights one day, and then the next day they don't see a difference. So they'll change their flow. It's like, man, give it like 2 weeks.
Yeah, every change, it's going to take time for your corals, your fish, whatever it is, to adapt and get used to it to finally see what that effect is. So, if you change your lights, you wouldn't see a thing for a few weeks until it starts to get used to it, and then a month later maybe you'll start to notice something. So,
but everybody's okay with acclimation with the fish and doing the drip dosing and stuff like that to balance out the freaking salinity and stuff. But they do not have the patience to actually let make a change and then let the tank rest and sit and actually adapt to the new setting. And that's what's a conundrum to me, is that certain things they have patience for, and then other things they don't.
Yeah.
And I mean, you notice that, guys, right?
Oh,
or
yes.
am I the only one? Okay.
No, it's 100%. They'll, drip alkaliate a fish, but anything else, nope. Throw it in, done.
Yep, exactly. But, yeah, I mean, and one of the things that I also noticed with the drip acclimation is that the bag the bagged fish, especially the ones that are imports from overseas, they're already oxygen depleted.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them are. Even if it's through the breathable bags and stuff like that, they're still oxygen depleted because inside the box it's
Mm-hmm.
pretty much bottled up, CO2 rich.
Exactly.
And instead of aerating and bubbling and getting the oxygen back up,
Mm-hmm.
they're dripping and kid you not, I've seen this before, makeup water, which is also low in oxygen,
Mm-hmm.
into the freaking tank to freaking try to balance out the salinity instead of getting it from their display tank.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
should be a little bit more aerated. So, it's there's a lot of things that I don't understand, and people are, they're wanting to keep fish and exotic fish, and they're not understanding that they still have to breathe. Even though they're in water, they need the oxygen. And
Mm-hmm.
when the oxygen's depleted, they're not doing so well. They're stressed out. They develop ick. They develop herpes, or what I call marine herpes, which is the velvety fungus that comes on when they're stressed out. And a lot of people mistake that velvet for ick, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
It's very, 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 very weird that there's so much information out there and still so much misinformation out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, so a skimmer is probably one of the biggest things that add oxygen to your water. That coupled with like all the surface tension from waves and water ripples and all that jazz. So
if you're bringing in fresh air,
true,
not from underneath your tank.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I mean, good to have like a open cabinet, or I have my super tiny little airline going outside, but
yeah, my skimmer intake pulls from outside.
Mhm.
That's one of the reasons I upgraded a skimmer to the Vertex Omega 180i. Pulls a lot more air than the old skims I had. So after running the thing 8-9 feet to go outside, I still wanted a certain amount of air, a decent amount of air. So that's one of the reasons I went with a AC pump instead of an AC skimmer instead of the DC skimmer. And I saw a review where a guy tested the air draw of a lot of skimmers, and the one he tested the best was the Vertex Omega 180i, which performed within 5% of what the manufacturer stated it would.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I decided to upgrade, but it definitely made a difference. Otherwise, in an apartment, I wouldn't be able to keep my pH over 8 at all if I didn't pull in outside air somehow.
Mm-hmm. It's made a big difference for me too, to be honest. I used to struggle to keep my pH above, to even hit 8, right? I was always 7.8 to 7.9, and now I'm around 8 to 8.1, just from my super tiny restrictive little 1/4 inch RO line that I managed to fish out through 15 feet of line. So even that's made a big difference.
I did try that BRS solution, but the cost would have been ridiculous if I had to purchase media every month. It would have been crazy.
Mm-hmm.
There's another one. It's soda lime through PetMed online. PetMed actually has the soda lime chips
Mm-hmm.
that actually strip out the CO2, and it's a lot cheaper per pound.
Yeah, but it was one less removable media for me, and I thought hey, why not just run it outside instead of having some sort of removable media?
Yeah.
But you could also utilize that removable media when you're drawing in that fresh outside air too, and strip it all the way down to no CO2.
True.
And you could also run carbon, dry activated carbon that's moist, to actually filter out the air before you actually draw it into your skimmer.
I have a little box outside, like electrical box, where I just have a little bag of carbon on the bottom before the air gets sucked in. It's more of as a filter just to get any nasties out of it, but seems to be helping. Yeah, we lost Seymour. Nick, welcome.
Hey, Nick. Hey, he's back.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey.
Sorry, I joined the chat late.
Oh, is that Nick Chan?
That is Mr. Chan.
Yeah,
It is.
I'm
The one and
disappointed.
only.
Been
Always late.
Yep.
Oh man, I haven't seen you around for a while, man.
Hey, like we had the UK trade show last week, and I've just been busy since then, to be honest.
I understand.
I know.
Was it good?
But no, it's so good. Yeah, it was really good. I got to see some of the newer products that I wanted to have a look at. Vince, who's distributing the Reef Brights and the Triton over here, he's also doing the Pax Bellum. So
Nice.
he had those at the show, so I got to see those in the flesh as well. So that was really interesting. So yeah, it was a good show. Obviously, Mr. Master Leng Sai was there as well, so I had a good chat with Leng. He was really popular at the show, so yeah, it was all good.
So quick question on speaking of the Pax Bellum, what do they dose? Is it like a nitrogen source or what is it they dose for the Chaeto?
Molybdenum, iron.
Okay.
And they also give you some nitrate, but I've never dosed nitrate. There is a nitrate included in it, nitrate, but I've never dosed it. I never used that bottle.
Okay, that's good to know.
I think it's just to trigger it, right?
Yeah. In fact, I don't use the, I don't regimentally dose the stuff that comes with the Pax Bellum. I run the Triton system, so I just adjust based on what Triton says. It's just that instead of going out and buying new supplements, why not just use the ones that Pax Bellum already supplies? And I'm very conservative with it. And then when it's finished, I'll go out and get the Triton supplies.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I was just kind of curious because I've been half wanting to try experimenting, just dosing a little bit and just seeing how that affects the Chaeto reactor, like see if there's a big difference in growth or if it changes it much. I'm sure there would be. So that's what I'm thinking. So let's get a few of those supplements and see what happens. I like to experiment.
Do you like to experiment, or do you like to experiment after somebody else has experimented for you?
Depends on my faith in the experiment.
Calculated risk.
Exactly. Although I do eventually, probably next year, I might set up a second tank as more of my experimental tank. So we'll see what happens there. But it'd be good to have one that I can play with and don't touch my nice big pretty one as much. Keep things stable and happy.
Hey, how did you get on setting up the Focus One on your friend's tank?
It's still sitting beside me, so I haven't yet. Still on my to-do list.
Oh, okay. Not yet.
I had an action-packed weekend, so I haven't got to a lot of stuff I wanted to get done.
Yeah, we also have the Focustronic.
Nice.
Focus One as well. And we're going to be testing it pretty soon.
Excellent.
Just haven't had a chance.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Did you just get the one cruiser, or did you get more than one unit?
I only opted for the one.
Oh man, you're gonna need like a few, I think, to get the best out of it on your tanks.
It's gonna be hell to try to test it on the larger system. You have a small system that's set aside for experimentation.
Nice.
Okay.
So we want to see how it affects color, how it affects, everything else, and it's basically, does the LEDs hit the right spectrum to actually, push over the, certain coloration.
Yeah.
Kind of like what Devin was saying. You dose certain minerals and at different lighting intensities, you get different color renditions in the coral. And I'm not talking about the blue light versus white light argument, but the higher the intensity at the right spectrum, you start developing higher red. You got oxidation of the iodine, and start getting a deeper red. Fiery red dragons, the tips of some of the corals, some of the birds. Which one is that? The historic. That's historic. You know which one I'm talking about, right? The bird of paradise one.
Yeah.
So I mean, those develop a nice red tinge to the tips on the growth edge. Just little tweaks and understanding coral coloration. That's what we've been doing for the last, I want to say, 10 to 15 years over here at Elegant Corals. Playing around with different intensities, different water movement, different temperatures, different oxygen levels, so on and so forth, to actually be able to artistically draw out the different colors that we want.
No, that's very cool. Cruz, we're gonna have to compare notes because I'm actually really curious to get these on my buddy's tank and see how they do. It'll be interesting to see how the corals change, or if they change, or if any growth changes. So,
Absolutely.
yep. Hey,
I'm trying to
Joshua.
get
Oh,
I'm trying to get
Hey.
the actual spectrum from Eric Tang.
Oh,
as well.
perfect. Can I get you to mute yourself for a sec there, Joshua? Just a lot of noise you're walking around.
Yep, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Cruz. So what were you saying about getting the actual spectrums and kind of see how it compares?
Yeah, basically how it would actually compare to like the metal halides, how it would actually compare to some of these other, like the loopy LED lights and stuff like that. Some of the other LED fixtures out there.
Mm-hmm.
How does it compare spectrally? And we're also looking at another aspect of it, which is the rotation.
Yep.
The rotation and the actual physical photo intensity period, based on the rotation of the head unit.
Yep.
Does that affect the longevity and the photo period of the actual corals itself, or does it really matter? Does that kind of make sense?
Well,
because as you move the focal point away from one coral colony and try to focus it on another, you're hitting the umbra and the penumbra, the shades of the light, that you're not getting the full intensity anymore.
But if you look at it from like an individual light, I would kind of agree. But if you're using multiple units, and you've got overlap, then you can get more consistency, I think. So it's more like not necessarily the blanket coverage, but the direction at which that blanket takes. Does that make sense?
I think Dev in his video about that alluded to the fact that since the head is rotating and the light's coming from different angles, you'll get better penetration into some of your dense corals like bird nests and stuff, and you won't get as much die-off down in the coral.
Yeah, that's.
I have that issue now where as soon as an SPS gets any size, like it doesn't have to be something thick, but the undersides of all my SPS die or have no polyps. So that's one of the things I'm hoping to fix with T5 with the blanket of light. But it'll be interesting if the Focus One, like I can't use the Focus One on my tank at all because it's not, just nowhere to mount it, not possible. But it'll be interesting, like if it works for a future build, it could definitely be in the conversation if I have a canopy or somewhere to mount it. So I'll be interested in that.
I would love this Focus build.
My suspicion. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say.
I was mentioning that in some parts of our tank we don't have certain light penetrations, based on shadowing and coral shadowing and stuff like that. That's where I see the benefits, is basically being able to focus it in on certain areas and being able to
get light under overhangs in certain areas that are normally
exactly. So I mean, I see a benefit in that as well. So it is innovative.
So my suspicion of the biggest benefit, this is pure speculation, but what I think is when you I kind of use this lens in my video, I think, but as you hit light straight down, you're not getting light necessarily on these little edges underneath, like the base of a coral is more white. Or if you're hitting it from an angle, you're gonna get more on that bottom and potentially see less die-off at the bottom of a coral and have more kind of skin and flesh and fuller kind of coral colors in the colony. So that's kind of my guess of the biggest change I'm gonna notice, but that's pure speculation on my assumptions. But
that's my hypothesis as well.
I mean, the other interesting thing for me though is the way people are interpreting the rotation, because if you've got the light, say, imagine you've got a coral in the very center of your tank and you've got the light slightly offset to that. Now the spread is going to hit the top of that coral anyway. Now, if you rotate that light, it's still going to hit the top of the coral, but it's also going to go down, to the side, like a shadow, right? As the sun comes over, and you still get surface photo period over the surface of the coral, but you're also getting that at the angle.
Yeah. Well, I think
the thing for me would be the way I've seen it set up so far with multiple units is that they're all in a row across the top of the tank, and then they all rotate to the left, and then they all rotate to the right. I'm wondering whether it's a case of the units to the left of the tank rotate almost opposite directions to an extent, so that they hit both sides of the corals towards the center of the tank at the same time. I don't know.
I would like to see somebody, set up an experiment with 1 or 2 of those and a couple of T5s, so you get that blanket coverage that you get from T5s, but also the directional light from the other ones.
Yeah. To be honest, that would probably.
I don't know. That would probably be the ultimate light. That would be the ultimate light. You know.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That for me would be tick all the boxes, right?
I know, because you do get that blanket of light with T5s, and then if you have these lights, which are LEDs, which are going to give you the shimmer that you want anyway. And then you can also do effects where the light moves across the tank. And then another thing I like is, you're not getting all the intense light from the same angle. I don't know.
Imagine being able to grow your coral in morphs, so that wherever you focus the light, you get better growth. So you could almost grow your coral uniformly by angling it at certain stages of growth, so that you're not getting a particular section of the coral growing, more than the others.
Or you can sculpt if something grows toward the light. Like, how about you angle the light?
Exactly.
Yeah. So I want this bird's nest not to grow to the right because I have an overhang or something there. I want him to grow to the left, so I will not even have the light rotate during the day, but have him just angle here. Or just have more intensity at this point during the day. Like, have him, this is, how Focus One, I think, has like 0 at some point during the day. It's have 0 being pointing at an angle at the coral, and have him grow towards the light, which is to the left. Oh man, you'd probably be able to create some crazy scapes if you can manipulate the coral growth like that, right?
See, that's why I like you, Seymour, because you see opportunities in product, right?
Oh man, that's crazy.
We've done that with halides. We've angled them. We've also angled our T5 so that it's pointing towards the back, so that the corals grow towards the front of the tank. And once again, with the LEDs and having this rotatable thing, I think it's a good thing. It's a novelty, definitely. And something different. But we also do rotate our halides at an angle, so that it's actually pointing at a 35-degree angle to the surface of the water, and it's angled towards the back, so that it actually shines towards the back of the tank. It actually grows out. Everything grows out towards the front, especially in our display tank.
Yep. The other thing I'm actually kind of curious to play with pretty soon, hopefully, is Ecotech. They have their new diffuser panels for their light. So it's going to diffuse the LED light, which I think is going to make it kind of like a midway between LED and T5 look. So I'm kind of curious how that one works out.
See, the thing I like about the T5s versus LEDs is LEDs you can get the shimmer and the color pop, but you can't get true actinic out of an LED. You got to go with T5s to get that.
Exactly. And one other thing about the diffuser is that you diffuse light to a certain point where it actually impedes the light penetration. Because you have all the scattered light.
Yeah. And
it also reflects off the surface of the water. So that's where I'm wondering what the efficacy is to have. I mean, in the workplace, in industry, we basically take a piece of sandpaper and freaking scratch the hell out of the DeWalt flashlight.
Yeah.
So it's a more diffuse light. And in construction, and doing drywall and watching drywall guys do it, is that they're just taking freaking fine grit sandpaper and freaking scratching up the freaking lens.
Yep.
And that's their diffuser.
Hey, Cruz, I've got a question for you.
Yeah, cuz what's up?
I'm wondering, with the spectrums being altered by the coatings of the diodes. So we know Kessel produced their own coatings of the diodes, which is why they get very specific or unique specific spectrums in their lighting.
And they're doping, the doping
of
the silicon wafer.
Right. So has anybody produced yet a multi-coated diode so that you're getting several spectrums from the same diode? Like slightly, because diodes are very specific spectrum.
Yes,
Where with T5 and halides, we got blends of spectrum.
It's called
So
a white LED.
right. So what have they produced? Yeah. So have they produced that in like the blues as well, so that you're not getting such a specific wavelength, but you're getting wavelengths across a range within one diode?
I know that they've been playing around with it, but each of the different colors has a different excitation requirement.
Right.
So if you actually overexcite one of them, you burn it out.
Right.
I was watching a YouTube video the other day. I forget who it was talking about the lenses on the LEDs, and one of the lights on the lenses, they had like the outside rim was like frosted, but it was clear in the middle, and then some of the others had the center frosted, but it was clear around the outside. Yep. It just mixed diffused the light real well.
Yep.
I'll be honest, for me, I don't like optics on the diode. I don't like optics on the LEDs. I prefer the LEDs without the optics.
Actually,
the Kessel AP700, the diffusion kits were, in my opinion, worthless. Like I didn't see a big difference with the optics that I did see a reduction in PAR, and but I didn't see a big enough difference that and I'm somebody that had the light about 18 inches, 20 inches off the water, and got a lot of light spillage, and I was using it to light a 4-foot tank at the time, and I didn't see. I saw a slight reduction in shimmer. So if you're looking to reduce shimmer, yeah, but I didn't see like spread or anything like that. It didn't make a difference.
That high off the
what
tank,
about your
like,
coral?
a lot of diffusion anyway.
Huh?
But what about your corals, Seymour?
No difference.
How long did you have it on your tank
run it for?
Probably 2 months.
You need to leave things on for an extended period to see true changes.
How long would I need if I'm given something 2 months? Then
2 months is still.
The corals are just getting comfy.
Yeah, I've got the AP700s on mine right now with no diffusers.
Yeah, I took the diffusers off. It was fine. I didn't see any difference at all though. Maybe I didn't give it enough. Could be.
I don't think you give enough time.
Yeah.
2 months though. 2 months.
Seymour, you like to change stuff too quick. It does take time.
More than 2 months.
Yeah, the old acclimation period that we had for halides. You guys remember the old halides and utilizing window screens to actually diffuse the light and to actually reduce it. And then 1 week you would remove one layer, and then the second week you would remove the second layer, third layer, so on and so forth. And that's how we acclimated things before to the halides. It took probably 2 months just to acclimate, if not longer.
Yeah.
Well, you got to remember though, Cruz, is nowadays we have these action reefers that want to like.
What is an action reefer?
We have action reefers now.
What is an action reefer?
Action reefers want to see action.
Instant gratification of changes.
Grow.
I saw 2 months was enough. I took them off, but what I thought? I really thought the way, maybe at the time I was just silly, but I expected to see like a dramatic reduction in some of the shadowing, and I expected to, because I had it so high off the tank, it casted like a hard shadow on the wall behind it. I expected to see even more softening of the shadow, and I didn't see it. So I didn't see any visual. I see a slight reduction in shimmer, so I didn't see any visual.
I love the shimmer.
No, I love the shimmer of Kessels, but no, I love the shimmer of Kessels. I don't think any LEDs beat them. I love them. But I expected to at least see a reduction, because one of the complaints I've seen people have with the Kessels is it gives them a headache. The shipper gives them a headache. Like I've gotten that complaint a lot, but I didn't see a reduction. But does it, the Ecotech diffusion kits, Do you really? Does anyone really think? I mean, I don't have an opinion one way or the other, but do you really think it's going to make a big difference in terms of spread and helping with shadowing?
I plan on doing a video on it soon, so we'll find out.
Oh, you have it already?
No, I'm working on it.
Hey, Singer, do you have the AP700 right now still?
No.
How
Oral
much does
is an
it change your
equipment
par?
junkie.
He said you saw a reduction in par.
Say it again, sorry?
He said he saw a reduction in par. I was wondering how much did it change it?
I think about.
See, I hate par. I hate people when they like.
I didn't know any. Yeah, but we didn't know any better at the time, so that's all we had. This was last summer, and there was no other. Until I watched that like BRS video and they started talking about per another light. At the time, that's what everyone was using. So that's what the standard at which I judged it. I didn't know any better. At the time, so par is all I have.
A very misleading number, because it's like measuring a volume, but of what?
But
par,
I will say,
Nick,
I will say when it comes to Kessels though, par, because the Kessel has this logic where, even if you choose white, it still kind of ensures that the coral is getting like the spectrum that it needs. It's not like Ecotech where I decide I want to do white. White could be like a terrible spectrum because the blues aren't mixed in. When you choose a white with a Kessel, it still has that UV spectrum, blue spectrum, whatever nanometers that the core. So I think in the case of Kessel, I think par is okay in most instances to use. I wouldn't use it for an Ecotech or some other light where,
just want to throw this out there. Par is a second, a moment in time, right? You also need to look at the duration, right? If you have 200 par and your lights are 4 hours and I have 200 par for 10 hours, that's a completely different thing for the coral, right? So you also need to look at duration, not just straight up what the par is, because it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, you also need to take a look at the spectral composition because I could run a green diode par meter and I could show that I'm well over 2,000, but it's useless to the entire tank.
Exactly.
Yep.
Be very, very careful when you're utilizing a par meter and really understand what light is and what your light composition is.
That is true.
Yeah. I'll be honest, when par was being quoted by so many companies and so many, hobbyists and stuff, it was almost like, genuinely like trying to mislead people because it was a figure. And if the figure was higher, then, that's a good light. But nobody was talking about the full story, And exactly as, my cousin said, is like, you got to look at not just the volume, but what is in that volume. I always say to people, like, if I give you a full dinner plate of meal to eat and it's just mashed potato, that's not going to be healthy for you. If I give you half a plate of fresh veg, meat, your vitamins, that half a plate of food is going to be much better for you than a full plate of rubbish.
That sounds like trace elements right there, Nick.
I understand fully what Nick is. I was just reading an article earlier where I was looking at phone manufacturers where they actually like in the tech industry, they still publish what's called Geekbench scores for phones. And I always look at it and say, hey, what does this mean? Like, and what happened is some companies got their hand on the software and manipulated the phone. So when it detected that someone was running Geekbench software on the phone, it would tune the phone in such a way that it would perform excellent on this test. But, the fact that it performed excellent on a Geekbench score doesn't mean that it does anything real world, like how do people use it? So, to this day, so Nick, what I'm saying is, I get exactly the point you're trying to make because I see people do that stuff all the time, especially in, tech and stuff like that, where they publish these arbitrary scores that don't really mean anything.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying ignore par, but if you get like two spectral compositions that are similar, and then one is scoring a low par and one is scoring a high par, and the spectral composition is similar, then that's a reason then to use par. you know. But to use it in isolation is almost like qualifying something on its weight. You know, how much does it weigh? This weighs 1 kilo, this weighs 10 kilo, therefore the 10 kilo is better. But what are you weighing? A ton of feathers or a ton of concrete? Exactly. What is it that you want? You know. Sometimes I always use the analogy of the Skittles. I give you, you know, a bag of Skittles, and if you only like red Skittles, and I give you one bag that is full of red Skittles, that's going to mean more to you than if I give you 10 bags of green, yellow, and blue Skittles and no red. You know, it doesn't matter how many bags of Skittles I give you, you're not going to eat any of them because you don't like them. So you got to compare like for like, you know.
Yep.
That's the way I see it.
Yeah, Reef Bright does that very, very well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's also a photonics expert, which also does a lot of the industrial lighting, a lot of the other types of lighting outside of the hobby. And, you know, I would consider somebody with multiple applications for the same type of technology to be an expert because he's seen it in different avenues, in different, applications, basically, and understanding what each application is meant for, because different light does different things. For instance, the coloration of the coral versus the growth. There was, you know, Sanjay did a study on that. You know, he's running whites instead of the blues, but running the blues only reduced the amount of nuisance algae in high nutrient systems.
Yep.
You know, and vice versa. You know, and it's like, you know, how do you quantify, you know, once again, going back to multi-variables to a tank if you don't truly understand the application or the technology that you're actually playing with. And that's one of the hardest things to actually pinpoint and nail down in this hobby is what is the standard that we actually want to adhere to. You know, we all want to reef differently, but yet we want standardization. We want standardization, but we also want to do our own thing. Do you know what I'm saying? So
I don't think there is a standardization, and I don't think we can get one because it's what works for you. Like one standard doesn't necessarily work across the board for everyone's tank. So, I mean, it's more guidelines than standardizations. I would say guidelines. No black and white here. We live in the gray with reefing.
No, I'd say you're wrong with that one, Dev, because at the end of the day, the coral needs a specific light. That's science. You know, that's Mother Nature. You can't get away from that.
I would say a certain spectrums are likely more ideal, but there's not to say that another similar spectrum isn't going to work. It's still likely going to work. It might not. Maybe it's 90% of the potential of the other one.
I disagree. Exactly, because you've got required spectrum. And then it's got, okay, I can't quite give you that, but I can give you this. Will that do? And the coral says, yeah, I can deal with that. Yeah, I'll acclimatize to that.
Okay, so I'm just going to throw this out there.
It goes back to the whole, and it goes back to the whole trace element thing too. There's a baseline, and then there's what we call enhancement supplements. You know, to actually get the different, you know, to actually get the coral to do what you want it to do. And that's the personalization that I was trying to make, is that there has to be a baseline, you know, of what is tolerable to the, you know, to the coral, to the reef inhabitants, so on and so forth. That there has to be a baseline.
So just
not necessarily a standard.
I think there's ideals, but I just want to throw this out there. I have had many different lighting systems over my years of reefing. I've built my own. I've had eBay ones. I've had China ones. You know, I've had the Radions. I've had all kinds of different brands. And they've all grown coral. Some obviously more than others, but things still.
Here's a question for you then, Dev. So when
survive
you tried
versus
all these
thrive.
Different, so when you tried all these different types of lighting, what baseline were you using to compare them to see how far off ideal they were?
My previous lighting, it was better
or
or
were you
worse.
just using exactly? So you're just using lighting versus lighting, right? Well, you didn't have a specific spectrum composition to measure it against, did you?
Actually, one day, I would love to have a tank and put it like, you know, have this, you know, the same water, same parameters, you know, frag up some corals and have a different light over each section and try a bunch of stuff. I think that'd be a cool experiment to do one day.
But you have to black out the dividers as well, so you don't get light spill.
No, for sure. But I think it'd be cool.
Like that right now.
Is he?
He's got 2 frag tanks. He's got same frags in both tanks, same water system. They go through the same sump. But he's got LEDs over one and T5s over the other.
Nice.
That's what I was gonna say. Is try two different tanks at the same time.
Yep.
Mm.
It'd be cool to do that. I'd like to do that one of these days.
So you can go to Petco or PetSmart and get the 10-gallon starter tanks and get those for like $50. It's the whole thing in there. You just change the lights out. Yeah. And you can make them frag tanks. Be easy.
Yeah, that's true.
What would be interesting for me, Cruz, is, you know, do the lighting companies actually know, like, the target spectrum that maybe the LED technology can't quite reproduce? You know,
do you think they know and they're just not telling us?
It might be that they can't reproduce it because of the technology.
I've heard that the UV stuff and I'm probably hearing this from Jake Adams on a live stream somewhere where, you know, the UV it can produce it, but the violet they give it, sort of like what you just said with the corals, like I need UV. LEDs can produce it, but you're giving me this violet stuff. I can work with that.
No, there is some true UV diodes. True UV,
but they're expensive. But I've heard they're expensive and it's cost prohibitive to include it in fixture.
And they burn out quick. And they burn out quick.
Yes. So I've heard that with the cost of coating them properly, they're already expensive. Coating them properly and maybe just putting them in a fix. It just imagine how expensive a Radion is. Imagine if a Radion had true UV, how crazy expensive it will be. So,
you know what? Also burn hotter too. You can't forget that. You remember the excitation that I was talking about? Is that UVs at a certain amperage burns very, very hot. It means that you're going to have certain areas of hot spots on basically the butt chip of the LEDs, and you're going to get burn spots. You're also going to get delamination of certain traces. Also going to talk about, you know, the build of the actual IC board itself. You know, it's going to be compromised. So
the thing is, Cruz, what's interesting for me though, Cruz, is like the halides. We can get UV from halides. That's why they have glass, right? To protect us from the UV. So for me, UV is a targeted requirement. So we actually want UV, but you know, how many people know what nanometers, what wavelengths the UV is at? Because you're talking 390 nanomoles, right?
380, 390, 360.
Yeah. So when you're looking at a light, if you're seeing it start at 410, then basically you're not getting any UV.
Exactly. It's just a color.
So this is what's talking about benchmarks. When you're looking at a light and saying, "Oh, is this a good light or not?" and you're putting it on your tank to see if it grows your coral or not, you can actually look at the specs of the light. If that light nanometer spectrum starts at 410, you pretty much know that you're getting no UV. So for me, I would look at that and go, "Okay, I need to partner that up with some T5s or some halides then to generate."
That's why I want to get that aquatic life.
Yeah, this LED isn't giving me that, but you can see that from the spec of the light. But how many people
That's why you should get that aquatic life T5 system they're coming out with.
Yeah, I mean, Dev will tell you, I've had that bracketing system. I've been talking about that for months, saying, you know, why isn't anyone producing something that's affordable, that looks good, that you can place around? You know, Radians, AIs, Kessels that provide you with a good T5 mounting. You know, I think that's a really good product. I'm glad somebody did it. You know, definitely.
Well, no, it's nice to have something that actually looks good. My problem with all the retrofit stuff is it didn't look sleek hanging above a tank. This one actually looks pretty good.
That pig can be. That's just because nobody did it, Dev.
That's what I mean. I'm happy someone did finally.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
We've done what we call the Frankenstein units, where we actually mix all the different types of lights available and the inductive type of lights, and we saw that there was really no efficacy increase other than running the T10s. You know, the BHOs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, the lumens and also the light quality was very, very similar. There was no benefit, even though it got hotter. You know what I'm saying? There's a point of limited return for different technologies of light, and that's one of the things that we also look at. And one of the things that ReefBright looks at is, how can we get the least amount of heat for the same amount of light output and the quality light output. And that's one of the reasons why Ed mentioned that the ReefBright halides were halide 2.0. Basically, they ran cooler, but they still had the same efficacy as the original ones because they're actually tuned together. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
I'll tell you what,
each other.
I haven't. Yeah, exactly. I haven't managed to speak to Tulio yet, but at the show, the UK show, the brief price went down an absolute storm because we were actually able to explain the science behind the lighting to people. And you should have seen their faces when we explained it to them. They were like, hey, I didn't know that. Nobody's ever said it like that before. And it was just so funny to, when they saw the lights, they were thinking, oh, these are pretty basic lights because there's no app, there's no controllability. Oh, what, you using halides again? And, when we explained the products to them, you could see in the faces, the brain's ticking. the brain's
Watch the wheels
working.
turning.
And they were like, yeah, and it was like, oh, actually, yeah, I can see this. It's like, I know Jake made a comment on Michael Aaron's live stream when he was on there, and Michael asked him about ReefBright, and Jake kind of said, well, they haven't done anything new in a while. It's kind of like an old light, haven't done anything new in a while. And I was kind of thinking, because I was kind of thinking, well, when you're ahead of the curve, what's to change? Everyone's trying to get where they're already at. So what's to change? No.
Because it's not old technology. It's basically tuning.
The ballast on the halides are crazy good.
It's like taking a Mustang, a Ford Mustang, and then having Mr. Either saline or going with the Shelby. You know what I'm saying? To actually tune your car. Then you could actually reap the benefits of what the maximum output of it can be, and that's what ReefBright did. Is that they tuned the ballast to the light itself, to the light bulb.
We did, Cruz. That way, we got people that they had the halide on display with the XHOs, and we got people to put their hand on top of the fixture, and this thing had been running, all day, and it was just like warm to the touch. And you could see them like thinking it was like the halides of old days, and they were going to burn themselves. And they, tentatively
don't trust
they
it.
thought we was kidding them. Yeah, exactly. And they were like, one guy wouldn't put his hand on until I put my hand on it. It's like
I don't blame him.
I don't blame him either.
Okay, so
but that just was a physical demonstration. They're not like the halides of what we used to use. Crazy.
So which model are you looking at? I'm just looking at their website right now.
The halide units?
Yeah,
the hybrids.
Okay.
With a digital ballast, twin arcs.
ReefBright halide hybrid. Okay.
You can dim those halides now with those
cool.
ballasts.
Nice.
With the digital ballast.
Yeah.
See, the thing is that the owner and the creator and also the technical expert also developed a lot of the products for ice cap at one point in time. So, I mean, you're talking about somebody who has experience, who has developed with big names, has done architectural wonders, chandeliers, with LEDs a long time ago. I mean, you're talking about 2002, 2003, utilizing LEDs back then. And, it wasn't really commercial. It was more industrial utilization. You know what I'm saying?
I'll tell you what, Dave, you want to get Tulio on here sometime, because I was chatting to him the other week for about an hour and a half. And sometimes when I talk to my cousin about corals and stuff, he flips my head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Tulio did exactly the same thing about lighting. And I've been involved with LEDs since, they came into being pretty much, and represented a lot of the LED companies and worked with a lot of the LED companies as well for aquarium use. And the stuff Tulio was explaining to me was like, hey, I'm back at school. You know,
he has a video. He had a video from
crazy good.
Macna that you have to watch like I think 2 times and sometimes rewind because it's a hard listen. Like if you're looking for like fun reef video that's all about, hey, my tank looks awesome, you know, like different, like really light reading. Like a lot of what I listen to is really light listening. A lot of what I listen to is light listening because sometimes you just want background stuff when you're working or other things. But that BRS video, like I think I had to watch it 2 or 3 times to sort of get it. And then when he was explaining like color temperatures, and he said it doesn't actually burn at 14K, we're just mimicking it, and you know, talking about other things, and you know, for a while, I've always heard people say this is since I've been in the hobby, like I've always heard people say, hey, Reef Bright, there's a pop when you use Reef Bright strips, and I thought it was just hype, you know, like hype. And then I started looking at the reefers who have been saying like Reef Bright strips like work and the pop they get off of it. Like people who don't even, there's even, I've known installers who like, you know, for their own personal tanks, you know, they're technophiles, so they use Radions. But when they need to make a customer's tank look good, they go with Reef Brights always.
I have never seen one in person, but I hear you guys talk about it enough.
Yeah, like I think I've seen one in person twice, but I've always heard and said, listen, the pop you get I've heard so many people say, and this is not like a marketing or video where someone says Reef Brights. This is like reefers saying the pop you get from Reef Brights is, and you know, and then I was rethinking. Yeah, and then Tulio, you know, sometimes, and then I watch a video of, I'm being honest, like I watched a video of Tulio a while ago, and I'm like, and he was talking about how it's proprietary. I'm like, this guy's full of crap because LEDs are LEDs. Like, why can't somebody just measure what this guy's doing? And then, you know, and then the, you know, and then I just kept hearing about, and then when I watched the guys talk and I looked him up, so he doesn't just do lighting, like reef lighting. He is like a lighting expert for like a lot of different applications. Like lighting is his
life.
Like he does lighting for different things, like terrestrial planting, you know, like, so lighting is his thing. Like he knows lighting personally. So
yeah. Well, the other day,
I have to dip out.
Okay, no problem.
No worries, Chris.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
But the other day, Jake Adams dropped a video where he went to Jason Fox's house. And I don't think anybody can argue with Jason Fox's corals. Most of his systems, they showed them all. He runs mostly Actinic T5s, but he has a Reef Bright strip on each side of all his fixtures, a Reef Bright blue. And he swears by them. So, I mean, there's something to them.
I'm going to have to find one day. I hear you guys talk about the Reef Brights all the time. I've never seen one in real life, so.
They're blue.
Yeah.
The thing is, Dev, like,
I've
you know,
seen.
The thing is, Dev, you know me, I'm lucky. You know, I think I'm really fortunate because, you know, I'm a hobbyist, but I've got the hobbyist dream job that I supply aquarium systems as you know, as part of my living, right? And I have, you know, Radians sat there. I have Kessel sat there. I have AI Hydra 52 sat there. I've even got Euroquatics Angel A1P sat there, which are a nice light. You know, I have those sat there. But what is above my tank?
Yeah,
Reef Brights. You know, I've got all the lighting there that I could choose from, but I've still got the Reef Brights. And bear in mind, you talk to anyone generally in the hobby, and you say, "Oh, what light should I buy?" And you'll hear them say AIs or Radians and so on and so on. Not many people will recommend the Reef Brights off the top of the head because why? Because it's not, in terms of consumable marketing, it has no app. You know, it has minimal controllability and so on. So it's kind of almost like a boring light. But my corals don't care about that stuff. And all I care about is my corals. So, you know, so what have I got on my tank? Reef Brights. And I've got a plug-in timer that switches them on, switches them off. I don't need to play with the spectrums.
Yeah. On that note, Nick, you should shoot him a message and we'll get him on the stream in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I think, like Seymour said, it won't be a light discussion with Tulio because I think he can keep it light. Don't get me wrong, but he'll delve, you know.
That's
and
fine.
like I said, my head was doing backflips, and some of the things he was talking about was educating me. You know, and I'm not saying I'm the smartest guy in the world or have the biggest knowledge in the world regarding lighting, but I've been involved with LEDs for a long time and pretty much know, you know, quite a bit about the different brands and the different specifics and with LEDs and stuff.
Hey, ReefDudes, if you listen to that,
but wow.
if you listen to that BRS talk, I think that's the type of maybe thing that you'll get on a live stream. And like I said, I'm not saying it'll be a bad thing. It might not. It might. I don't think it'll be necessarily a bad thing.
Oh no,
maybe
great.
But I do think whenever you sit down and talk to this guy about lighting, yeah, I've been looking him up. But you know what? I agree with you. I gotta do a Reef Bright strip. You know what, ReefDudes? Let me oh man.
Yeah, I got that open another tab. I'll watch it later. I have seen this video, but I'm gonna watch it again now. So I love those Magna talks. I watch those all the time.
I mean, the thing for me as well, Dev, is like, you know, the UK distributor is a good friend of mine, and he took off a load of LEDs off of his system, and he put on two 400-watt Reef Bright twin arcs, and maybe half a dozen of the blue XHOs. And he had a gathering of friends there to help him do the transition as well, unhook the lights and put the new ones on. And I remember the conversation with him and Tulio, because I was in on the conversation, and Vince was asking Tulio, well, this is what I'm running now. And there were like 9 LED units on his tank. It's a big tank.
Yeah.
And he said, what do I need? You help me to spec the lights that I'm going to need to replace these. And he went through the various coral. I mean, this guy's got a 2-foot tall Gonipora. You know,
wow.
It's a big tank. It's a nice tank with nice coral. And he said, tell me what I need to replace these with. And Tulio said, you need 2 400-watt twin arcs and half a dozen of the blue XHOs. And Vince was like, are you sure that's enough? And he's like, yeah, I'm sure that's enough. And he went ahead and, you know, got the shipment in and changed all the lighting over. And what he said to me is that when they switched the lights over and they first put them on, they all stood back and they all just went, wow. It's just like, he was worried that it wasn't going to be enough. And he was just like, wow. And when I went through to look at the system, last time I managed to get down to London, he showed me it on. It looked amazing, and he knocked the halides down to show me just with the blue XHOs, and it's like he's got red Gonipora in there and some nice red coral. And usually with the blue LEDs, you'll notice they kind of dull a little bit. Some of the reds, these just pop, and we both said we don't understand how he's got that look of blue. And still manage to get those reds pop the way they do.
Nice.
Because normally, visually, when you see the blues, you're going to think, oh, that coral's going to go dark. And it didn't. It still popped. And it's like, how did he do that?
Very cool.
I didn't realize Reef Bright actually made like lights in like 12-inch. I wonder,
they do, yeah.
I wonder how they would do like refugium wise, like maybe one blue, one full spectrum of a refugium.
Try it and find out.
They might,
experiment.
They might have another product that isn't, because like you said, Seymour, Reef Bright is one division of his company. So what I'm thinking is, like you're saying, he does horticultural lighting. So he might actually have a different light, which isn't under the Reef Bright umbrella, that would actually be better for an algae light than the Reef Bright coral lights are. Do you know what I mean?
All right. So I am going to probably, I'm on this mission to like just test all these refugium lights. But what I love is that my
and give him more than 2 months.
what I do like is that the Chaeto reactor is actually keeping up with the nutrients, so it gives me a chance to like take the little refugium and just, you know, test it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, go crazy testing it, just to see. Yeah, the actual best performing light I used was that crazy UFO light, but it was so loud, it was rusting because it was getting salt splash, and because it was growing algae everywhere in my sump. I needed something a little bit more focused in one area, but yeah, it'll be Reef Dudes. If you can get him on for a talk, it'll be heavy listening. But I think
Nick
that's
and I
one
will
of those
make it
things.
happen.
Yeah, I
Right,
think
Nick?
that's one of those things that I would definitely appreciate. Definitely.
You need me to speak to Tulio?
Yes,
Dev?
please. Yes, please.
Yeah. Yeah. No worries.
Start the conversation, then I'll bribe him to come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I think he'd be super interesting to talk to.
The interesting thing with
definitely got to save and post.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'll be honest as well. The interesting thing with Tulio is a lot like Cruz. Is that one of the things he was saying to me is that, Nick, you know, information is to be shared. You know, so he's more than happy to talk, you know, to people. If you chat to him, he'd be more than happy to talk to you, because he's of the ideology of you know, if we have information, then it needs to be shared to people that want that information. You know, so yeah, he's a really nice guy.
Okay. Oh, that's awesome. All right, guys, I am gonna shut her down though, just because I gotta go pick up the lady. But it was a good one today. We lasted about an hour on topic, and then we somehow bridged to lighting, but it was as good as always.
Whatever. It's still information for everybody else out there anyway, so it's all good.
No, exactly. So yeah, thanks everybody. Any special requests for next week's topic, or wing it day of is?
I don't know.
Yeah.
No idea yet.
All right, I gotta wait to
go back to your
figure
Facebook page and talk to you.
Sounds good. All right, guys. Thanks everyone for hopping on today.
Hey, wait, hang on 1 second before you go.
Yes.
Have we done anything on food and what people like, just what people feed their fish? That'd be a good one.
Oh, that'd be a good one.
That's another good one. Yeah.
All right, food it is. Done.
Well, all right.
All right.
Yep, there we go. Food. There we go. Our food topic.
I copyrighted that.
Yeah.
I copyrighted that.
So tune in next week for the episode on what to feed your tank, what foods are working, what do you use, why do you use it.
Hey, we should get somebody like George from Easy Reef, who does mastic and stuff.
Oh, come on, man. I didn't even get mastic yet.
You haven't got it yet?
I ordered it. It didn't come yet. I don't know what's up with Amazon, man. Come on, Amazon. If you're listening, Amazon, you're messing with me.
Amazon needs a reef tank, so they join the stream, right? All right,
yeah,
guys.
that's a good topic. Food is a good one.
And